Hi. Welcome to Luna Listens to Books channel. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe. Now the story begins. Mom's dying wish was to see me and Roderick get married. I pleaded with him and he finally agreed, but then he vanished on our wedding day. That night, my mom passed away, still wishing. The next day, that woman posted a photo of them together on Instagram saying, "You can't force happiness, I in his heart, I'm the one." My relatives and friends were all comforting me. Wiping away my tears, I commented under their latest Instagram post, "You two scums are such a perfect match." I silently handled my mother's funeral and took care of everything alone. In fact, Roderick's neglect of me for Lindsay was no surprise. We had been together for 6 years, however, a single phone call from Lindsay could pull him away from me, even on our wedding day. Whatever the reason was this time, I was too weary to think about it. After the funeral, I returned home. Roderick was not there, which was just as well since I did not want to see him. As I was packing my bags to leave, I opened the door and saw Roderick and Lindsay arm in arm at the doorstep. Lindsay's surprised look when they saw me almost made me feel like I was some unexpected guest, even though it was my home. "You're back, Elaine." Roderick noticed the suitcase in my hand and frowned involuntarily. "Elaine, what are you doing now?" His tone seemed to suggest I was making a fuss again. Lindsay looked at me pitifully while clinging tightly to Roderick's arm, as if marking her territory. "Elaine, I'm really sorry, I cut my finger that day, and Roderick came to take care of me. I didn't know it was your wedding day. I'm sorry, I didn't really mean it." "Don't go," she pleaded, yet her eyes gleamed with triumph. I glanced at her, noticing a small band-aid on her index finger. So this was Roderick's excuse for abandoning me and not showing up at our wedding. How ridiculous. In his heart, my mother and I mattered less than that small cut on her finger. "Roderick, let's break up." From the moment my mother died in my arms, all my love for him had evaporated. Roderick thought I was being jealous and throwing a tantrum. "Elaine, can you be more considerate and stop being unreasonable? We can have another wedding any time, but Lindsay is alone and injured. I couldn't leave her alone." Unreasonable? That was the word Roderick had used more often than anything else when he spoke to me. Just how much more understanding did he want me to be? Because Roderick treated Lindsay like a sister, and she had no parents and needed care, I would have to tolerate a third person in our love. I tolerated his readiness to care for Lindsay, his running to another woman without hesitation when I needed him most, and her occupying half of Roderick's heart. Despite my tolerance, they only became more brazen. Had enough of this life. I looked at Roderick coldly. "From now on, do whatever you want, it's no longer my concern." With that, I dragged my luggage past him. Roderick finally sensed something was amiss and grabbed my hand. "Is it because I missed the wedding and your mom's upset? I can explain it to her." I found it amusing. "Explain what? That you missed our wedding because of a small cut on her finger?" I laughed bitterly. It's been so many days, and had he ever really thought about what happened, he wouldn't have made such a foolish remark. I shook off his hand and said, "No need." Before, in Roderick's presence, I had always been cautious and mild, and I had never spoken to him in a tone as cold as now. Roderick watched my departing figure, confusion appearing in his eyes for the first time. Now he came to his senses and tried to follow. Lindsay held him back. "Roderick, this isn't your fault. If it wasn't for her mother pretending to be sick, you wouldn't have been forced to marry her." My mind went blank. By the time I came to my senses, I had already slapped Lindsay across the face. Roderick's face, initially filled with a hint of guilt, quickly darkened. He instinctively shielded Lindsay, his eyes cold and frightening. "Elaine, what are you doing?" I glared at Lindsay. "You'd better watch your words." Yet Lindsay played the victim. "Am I wrong? If it wasn't for your mother pretending to be sick, would Roderick ever marry you out of pity?" I turned to Roderick. "Do you feel the same way?" He didn't speak, but his eyes gave me the answer. 5 months ago, my mother was diagnosed with terminal liver cancer, knowing her days. were numbered. She wanted to see me marry the man I loved and have a happy home before she died. To fulfill my mother's dying wish, I pleaded with him for a long time before he agreed to have the wedding. Yet, he believed my mother was faking her illness to force him into marrying me. Perhaps he simply looked down on me from the start. He was the future of the Bessemer family as well as the heir to the family business. In college, I fell for him at first sight and pursued him relentlessly for 3 years. Roderick liked obedient women, so I complied with all his wishes. Yet only when I saw him with Lindsay did I realize he could be that gentle. Lindsay could whimsically act spoiled in front of him, holding his hand and even embracing him. All the things I wished but dared not do, she did effortlessly. Once I tried acting coquettishly like Lindsay, but he coldly pushed me away. "Elaine, the way you act makes me uncomfortable." Humiliated, I watched him walk away. After that, I never acted spoiled with him again. He never even took the initiative to hold my hand. Being with him, I always followed behind, while only Lindsay could walk beside him. Despite being called his girlfriend, I got nothing being with him. In everyone else's eyes, he and Lindsay were a perfect match. He took her to various events and introduced her to everyone. If it weren't for my mother's illness and my desperate pleas, that absurd wedding would never have occurred. I looked at Roderick with disappointment. This was the man I had loved for 9 years, and I began to doubt my past taste. Lindsay persisted. "Roderick, how is my face? Is it swelling up? How could she do that to me? It hurts so much." Roderick's attention immediately returned to her. I did slap her hard, as a clear imprint of the slap was visible. Roderick's expression turned sour. "Elaine, apologize to her." "What if I say no?" I raised my head defiantly. Roderick suppressed his anger. "Elaine, don't make me angry." I had always been afraid of Roderick being angry. Whenever he grew stern, I would instinctively defer to him because I still loved him. But now, I no longer cared about him. Lindsay was dissatisfied. "Roderick, I don't want her apology, I want to slap her back." Roderick glanced at me, trying to make me submit. Yet, I remained defiant. My attitude infuriated him, and Roderick decided to teach me a lesson. He signaled with his eyes, and suddenly, 2 bodyguards appeared and subdued me. I was pinned to the ground, struggling but to no avail. Lindsay walked up to me with a smirk and slapped me as hard as she could. Several times blood trickled from the corner of my mouth, sat silently on the ground, in disarray. Roderick looked down at me from above. "This is what you owe Lindsay. Apologize to her now, and I can pretend this never happened." I suddenly burst into laughter. "You are dreaming," I replied. Roderick squinted his eyes dejectedly. "Elaine, as long as you do what I say, I can give you anything you want, including marriage. Think it over." When I wanted it, he didn't give it to me. Now that I didn't need it, he was trying to make me submit through all his threats and lies. I suppressed the pain on my face and laughed mockingly. "Roderick, I told you we're done. I don't want to marry you anymore." Perhaps I had seemed too in love with him before, leading him to think I would always be there waiting for him. He scoffed. "What, you don't want to fulfill your mother's last wish anymore?" His tone was contemptuous. But before I could retort, Lindsay interjected. "Roderick, I told you she was lying to you. Her mother were really dying. How could she be like this? Don't be fooled by her. It's disgraceful for a daughter to use her terminally ill mother to deceive you." I couldn't stand it any longer. "Shut up. What right do you have to talk about my mother?" My retort completely infuriated Roderick. "Fine, you asked for this," he sneered as he made a call, putting his assistant on speakerphone and making sure I could hear clearly. "Cancel the surgery for Elaine's mother." Roderick thought he could threaten me with this, his gaze on me hardening. However, I just looked at him calmly, with no emotions in my eyes. The other end of the phone, Chester hesitated and then said, "Mr. Bessemer, her mother passed away 2 days ago, the day of your wedding." "How is that possible?" Roderick was thunderstruck. He looked at me incredulously, then angrily demanded through the phone, "Why didn't you tell me about this earlier?" Chester, afraid of being blamed, quickly explained, "Mr. Bessemer, you told us you don't want any report about Miss Evans." I heard that last sentence loud and clear, and in fact, I wasn't surprised. Roderick only cared about Lindsay, while I meant nothing to him. Before he could finish the call, I turned and left. After hurriedly hanging up, Roderick chased after me with a panicked stride. "Elaine, I didn't know your mother. I didn't know she was that ill. She seemed fine when I last saw her." Hearing this, I angrily shook off his hand. How dare he bring it up? The last time he saw my mother was 4 months ago. I had begged him for a long time and he finally agreed to see her. Even though the cancer had already spread, my mother still mustered the energy to prepare a dinner for Roderick. At the beginning of that dinner everything was fine, but less than 10 minutes into it, he received a call and hurriedly left. I knew that call was from Lindsay, and why mother, feeling sorry for me, didn't say much but hid in her blankets and cried that night. That was the first time I thought of breaking up with Roderick. But every time I saw his face, I couldn't bring myself to do it, so I swallowed the words back down again and again. Actually, I knew my mother didn't like Roderick, but because I liked him and she didn't want me to be unhappy, she kept silent. She had been suffering from cancer for 4 months, and the only thing she wanted was for me to marry the man I loved before she died. But on our wedding day, Roderick did not even show up. My mother and I waited until the evening, until I watched her die in my arms. I pushed Roderick away. "It doesn't matter anymore." Looking at my indifferent face, Roderick finally felt panic for the first time, had a strong premonition that he was about to lose me. "Elaine, believe me, I knew nothing about this. If you want a wedding, I'll have my assistant arrange it right away. We can get a marriage certificate tomorrow." Roderick pleaded. "Elaine, why are you so stubborn?" "Indeed. If I weren't so stubborn, how could I have loved this heartless man for 9 years, giving up even my self-respect? I had been enduring the pain he had caused me for that Lindsay, and letting him hurt me over and over again and leave me behind. I no longer had the strength to argue with him, and I simply turned and left. I left the home I had shared with Roderick for 3 years, heartbroken, and moved back to the apartment I had bought for my mother. The apartment was empty, and my mother was no longer there. Since my father's death, I had lived with my mother, and now, I felt abandoned by the whole world. I took a 2-week leave from work. Cut Tina off all contact with the outside world. Every day, I lay in bed, covering myself with a blanket, doing nothing but eating and sleeping. Roderick called many times, but I answered none. His assistant also contacted me, saying Roderick had prepared the best gravesite in the city and wanted me to relocate my mother's grave there. What was the point now? I refused. However, Roderick was persistent. One day, I received a special delivery package. Upon opening it, I found a diamond ring. There was also a letter written by Roderick himself. I didn't open it and instead sent it back as it was. I knew the gravesite, the diamond ring, and the handwritten letter were all his ways of appeasing me, his attempts at making amends. But I no longer needed his belated affection, had muddled through for half a month. Finally, I returned to work. The concern from colleagues and bosses let me know I was not really alone. Just before closing time, I received a call from an unknown number. After hesitating for a few seconds, I answered it. After connecting, a familiar voice came through. "Elaine," I did not speak. Roderick cautiously began. "Elaine, I know you are still angry with me. What happened before was my fault. I apologize. Tomorrow, the Bessemer family will host a banquet, and I will send someone to pick you up. I will announce to everyone that you are my future wife, and I will give you a grand wedding. I was wrong before, and I promise I will treat you well in the future." Had he said these words earlier, I would have been overjoyed, thinking my efforts had finally paid off. But now, I only found it hilarious. Why did he only regret losing me and think of treating me well now? How could he be so despicable? "I won't go, Roderick." But Roderick insisted. "No, Elaine, I will wait for you. Whether you come or not, I will announce to everyone that you are my wife." I ignored him and hung up the phone. Yet, the next day, I still went to the party. Our company had a partnership with Bessemer Corporation, and my boss, Mr. Micah, received an invitation. As his assistant, I had to go with Mr. Micah. I thought I could just avoid Roderick at the event. Unbeknownst to me, Roderick was at the entrance looking around. After a glimpse of me, his eyes lit up. "Elaine, I knew you would come." I took a step back expressionlessly. "Roderick, I am here just for work today. Roderick obviously didn't believe it and tried to approach me, but I dodged him. Mr. Micah's gaze lingered between us for a moment. Mr. Bessemer, do you know each other? Roderick nodded. She is my fiancé. Mr. Micah raised an eyebrow. A flicker of irritation flashed across my face. Roderick, how many times do I have to tell you, we're over, I have nothing to do with you anymore. Roderick was not angry. Elaine, I know you're just speaking out of spite, I didn't want to waste words on him. Mr. Micah noticed my reluctance and spoke up, Elaine, it's time to meet the client, let's go. He walked away, and I immediately followed. Roderick tried to stop me, but when he saw Mr. Micah's unhesitating steps, he gave up. I followed behind Mr. Micah. All my colleagues knew I had a boyfriend, but no one knew he was Roderick, the CEO of Bessemer Corporation. I felt awkward, not knowing how to explain to Mr. Micah. Fortunately, Mr. Micah, ever discreet, simply patted me on the back, signaling me to join everyone at the banquet without saying much. Unsurprisingly, I saw Lindsay. For years, she had attended various formal events as Roderick's companion. Seeing me, she frowned. Elaine, what are you doing here? I responded lightly, work. Like Roderick, she didn't believe me. Elaine, be smart and just leave Roderick, he is mine, and I am the only one who can become the future Mrs. Bessemer. I didn't understand, as I had made it clear that day that Roderick and I had broken up. Why was she still saying these things to me? I'll say it again, Roderick and I have broken up. I'm not interested in whether you can become the future Mrs. Bessemer or not, I said nonchalantly and turned to leave. Lindsay thought I was mocking her and snorted disdainfully. Just why can you sound so proud? Roderick was with you only out of pity for you, and your mother will soon realize that only I am the best match for him. Do you think Roderick really loves you? That day, I just pretended to cut my finger, and he rushed to check on me, leaving you and your mother behind. In his heart, I am just so much more important than you are. I didn't need her to remind me of this, I knew it myself. I was here for work today, there was no need to waste my time on her. Lindsay saw me indifferent to her evident provocation. She fumed inside. Suddenly, she smirked at me. Today, Elaine, I'll let you know that compared to me, you are nothing to him. The next second, Lindsay's foot twisted, and she dramatically fell to the side. As expected, a pair of strong hands suddenly appeared, firmly catching her. I was speechless. It was the same old trick, and I was tired of it. She weakly leaned on Roderick's chest. Roderick, my heart hurts so much. I just wanted to comfort Elaine, since she lost her mother. I didn't expect her to reject my kindness and accuse me of stealing you. Seeing her pale face, Roderick quickly took out a bottle of pills from his pocket and stuffed several into her mouth. Because of Lindsay's poor health, Roderick always carried her medication with him. When he looked up at me again, his eyes were full of blame. Elaine, I've already told you Elle would make you my future wife. What more do you want me to do? Lindsay has been in poor health and is so weak. Can't you be nice to her? Weak? Just moments ago, she seemed quite energetic in front of me, only Roderick was foolish enough to be manipulated by her. Originally, I didn't intend to do anything to Lindsay, but since she wouldn't leave me alone, she had only herself to blame. I took out my phone and waved it in front of her, a smile playing on my lips. Having dealt with her for so many years and being accused constantly due to her dirty tricks, I finally wised up. The moment she approached me, I discreetly started recording, and as expected, she stooped to playing the same old trick of slandering me. I turned the volume up to ensure that everyone present could hear the recording clearly. As the playback reached the part where Lindsay said she pretended to cut her finger, gloating about how Roderick ditched me on our wedding day for her, I deliberately observed Roderick's expression. It was indeed very telling. Panicked, Lindsay lunged to snatch my phone, shouting, "Elaine, how dare you scheme against me?" I laughed. I sure learned my lessons after all the years of dealing with you. The guests circled around, staring at her with disdain. Lindsay became visibly distraught, ducking her head in shame, unable to face the accusations of others. Roderick, having recovered from shock, looked at me, his eyes filled with guilt and astonishment. "No, Roderick, it's not like that. I just love you too much. I can't live without you. You promised my parents you'd take care of me for life. How can you marry another woman? Eventually, Roderick's gaze hardened as he looked at her, his eyes no longer warm and caring, but filled with deep disappointment and anger. Lindsay, I only ever saw you as a sister, and my wife can only be Elaine. Lindsay, stung by his words, shook her head in tears. Roderick, you can't do this to me. You promised my parents, and my parents were gone. I won't survive without you. Lindsay broke down crying, her voice filled with misery. Their families had been close for generations. Lindsay was born with a congenital heart defect and was often hospitalized as a child. Roderick, a few years her senior, had been entrusted by Lindsay's parents to look after her, a promise he always remembered and honored. After Lindsay's parents died in an accident when she was 10, Roderick continued to fulfill his promise, taking great care of her over the years. She had manipulated him by feigning illness and playing the victim. However, ever since Roderick and I were in a relationship, Lindsay would mysteriously fall ill, pulling him away from me. For a long time, I didn't suspect anything was amiss until a month ago, when I finally realized Lindsay had been faking her illness all along. Watching her cry and clutch her heart in her painful state, looking as if she was about to faint any second, I smirked slightly. After a while, I played another video from my phone for everyone to see. Lindsay initially looked confused but stopped crying instantly as she saw clearly what the video was all about. In the video, a woman with heavy makeup sat at a bar table, smoking a cigarette and exhaling clouds of smoke, surrounded by male escorts, partying wildly on the dance floor of the bar. So much for her heart condition. The next moment, she pulled a handsome escort towards her and kissed him passionately. The crowd around them cheered. Oh my gosh, that's a great French kiss. That day, I went to the bar upon my colleague's insistence and saw the scene by chance. Couldn't believe the woman was Lindsay until someone in the crowd called her name. Had always wanted to tell Roderick but hadn't found the right moment. The video abruptly ended as Lindsay snatched my phone and furiously smashed it on the ground. Her expression was fierce, her eyes bloodshot as she glared at me. Roderick was always so proud. How could he tolerate Lindsay's incessant deceit? He shot Lindsay a cold glance, a stark contrast to his usual gentle demeanor. Lindsay met his eyes and urgently grabbed his arm when she explained, "It's not what you think. That woman in the video isn't me. It was Elaine. She has always wanted to get me away from you. Roderick, don't you believe me?" Standing beside me, Roderick could see the woman in the video clearly. The woman in the video was none other than Lindsay. With such strong evidence, he had finally seen through Lindsay. He violently shook off her arm, his voice cold as he spat out the words, "Get out, I don't want to see you again." Lindsay lost her balance and fell to the ground, staring blankly at Roderick. This was the first time he had spoken to her in such a harsh tone, telling her to leave. Tears began to well up in her eyes, and she was ready to start her act of misery. Unfortunately for her, I had no intention of watching the drama unfold, so I walked up to her, looking down at her. "Lindsay, for years I've tolerated you, only because Roderick said you were the sister he had to take care of. From the time we started dating, you always tried to join our dates, plus you always claimed the gifts I gave Roderick as your own and actually attended various events with him as his companion. I took Roderick to meet my mother and you called him away over minor issues. You pretended to be sick, pulling him away from my side time and again. You cut your finger deliberately so Roderick would come for you even on our wedding day. Lindsay, do you think this is what a sister would do? Don't you feel any shame if you wanted to be Roderick's wife? Well, now I've made it easy for you, because we've already broken up." The crowd was in an uproar. Hadn't wanted to make a fuss, but she had to pick a fight with me today. People's accusatory voices about Lindsay kept reaching her ears. My goodness, how can Miss Butler be such a person? She's nothing short of a mistress, isn't she? So shameless. She's always beautiful and elegant in public. Who would have thought she would be contemptible? She caused them to break up, and she still had a nerve to make a scene here. I turned around, meeting Roderick's apologetic gaze. I chuckled softly. "Roderick, you're no better than her. Stop looking at me like that." He was taken aback. "Over these 6 years, you've hurt and neglected my feelings again and again for your beloved sister. You even left me at our wedding. Now you claim you want to make amends. Oh, you think you're so considerate, huh? Don't flatter yourself. You and Lindsay deserve each other. You are both just shameless." With that, I walked away with relish before he could respond. What should have been a fine banquet turned into a joke. After that day, Lindsay became a laughingstock in the entire circle. I'd caused quite a bit of trouble for the company, even causing a scene at the Bessemer family banquet, so the next day, when Mr. Micah called me into his office, I was prepared to be fired, but to my surprise, Mr. Micah said, "Elaine, would you like to go abroad with me to develop your career?" I heard rumors that Mr. Micah was being sent to manage a branch in Scandinavia, and to my surprise, the rumors were true. Seeing that I didn't speak up, Mr. Micah added, "If you're willing, you'll get promoted, and your salary will increase fourfold. I know this is sudden, but I'll give you time to think about it." It was indeed sudden. Yet, I found no reason to refuse. There was nothing left here that I was attached to. I looked at him and smiled faintly. "I've decided to go with you." After that, I was busy with the preparations to move abroad. Meanwhile, Roderick tried to contact me several times, but I ignored him. Ever since my mother passed away and after the last party, there wasn't much left to say between us. On the day I left, I told no one. By the time Roderick found out, I was already abroad. Before this, Roderick had always thought I was mad at him because I cared, and that I would eventually return to him. He was always confident, and he had reasons to be. But when he realized I had even sold my apartment, he finally panicked. He called me frantically. "Elaine, why did you sell the apartment? Are you not planning to come back?" "Yes." When I agreed to go to Scandinavia with Malcolm, I had no intention of returning. After I left, I heard that Roderick sent Lindsay abroad. Lindsay cried and refused to board the plane, but he had her escorted on. Whether he did it for a show or genuinely didn't want to see Lindsay again, it no longer concerned me. That day, after attending an event with Malcolm, we returned to the office. Unexpectedly, I saw Roderick at the entrance to our office. I never thought he would follow me abroad. Our eyes met, his filled with deep affection and indescribable longing. Had been together for 6 years, had never felt his love. Initially, he chose me because he thought I was docile. I looked at him calmly. "Roderick, don't come here again. I don't want to see you," but unexpectedly, this was just the beginning. He still flew over often. Knowing I didn't want to see him, he would just sit quietly in the cafe across from our office. He didn't disturb me, sometimes sitting there all day. Now, the whole company knew I had a persistent admirer. Everyone was betting whether I would soften, but I didn't. Until my 3rd year abroad, I finally agreed to meet him once. Roderick was as happy as a child. "Elaine, you finally agreed to see me." But what greeted him was my cold words. "Roderick, don't come here anymore." "Elaine, I already have a boyfriend." Roderick's face was a mix of shock and disbelief. "It's impossible, you must be lying, right?" He shook his head, assuring himself. "It's true." "Is it because I bothered you too much? If that's the case, I can." I interrupted him with a smile. "You've met him, it's Malcolm." Actually, I never thought I'd end up with my boss, Malcolm. After being hurt by Roderick, I no longer believed in true love, my heart numb as I moved to Scandinavia with Malcolm. Malcolm was a good boss, mature and capable, but initially, I simply saw him as my boss. Until one stormy day, trapped at home with a high fever of 39 degrees Celsius, I was delirious and convulsing in my sleep. Unable to reach me, Malcolm braved the storm and ran to my place. Woken by his fierce knocking, I staggered to open the door with my last ounce of strength. As soon as I opened the door, I collapsed into his arms. Chapter 9: Encountering the ex-boyfriend after the wedding. Due to the terrible weather and the inability to find a taxi, Malcolm carried me all the way to the hospital and looked after me for 2 days while I was unconscious. When I woke up and saw his distressed and haggard face, I was touched, thinking this was exactly what I had always wanted but never received. From that day on, Malcolm and I grew closer and naturally came together. The peace and comfort that Malcolm provided was something Roderick had never made me feel. Roderick stared intently at my happy smile, trying to detect a trace of a lie, but he found none. At that moment, he felt his world was crashing down around him, looked at me with reddened eyes for a long time. I thought he would say something, but instead, he silently turned and left. I never saw him again after that day. Later, a former colleague told me that Roderick fell seriously ill after returning to the country and had become even more cold and ruthless than before. A year later, Malcolm and I got married. The wedding, organized by Malcolm, was grand and romantic. That day, I received a message from Roderick. "Elaine, I wish you happiness, and I will always be here for you." He didn't attend my wedding but sent a wedding gift worth millions of dollars. I turned to Malcolm, who gently touched my head and said, "Since it's a blessing, let's keep it." After the wedding, I took Malcolm to visit my mother's grave. There, I encountered an unrecognizably thin Roderick. Malcolm considerately gave us space to talk and kissed my forehead before he turned to leave. Since my arrival, Roderick had been staring intently at me. Seeing Malcolm kiss my forehead, his eyes reddened, but he forced a smile and said, "Elaine, how have you been this year?" I smiled, "Pretty good." We kept silent for a long time. Finally, I broke the silence, sighing, "Roderick, I truly wish you happiness as well." As time passed and with Malcolm's presence, my heart was filled with happiness and love, and my hatred for Roderick gradually faded. Now, seeing him was like looking at someone from the past, and my mind was peaceful. Roderick did not expect to hear this from me. He smiled, but his smile was incredibly bitter. "Elaine, I would rather you continue to hate me because at least that would mean I still occupy a place in your heart." He knew when the hatred no longer existed, he no longer had a place in her heart. Was stunned for a moment. Roderick said no more and silently walked away. Only after he had left did Malcolm come back to stand by my side and take my hand firmly, shook my head slightly, completely getting Roderick off my mind, and grasped Malcolm's hand as we looked at my mother's smiling photo on the tombstone. "Mom, I will definitely be happy. You can rest in peace now." Roderick's POV. It wasn't until I lost Flaine that Elle realized how important she was to. I admitted that initially, my attention to her was because she would do everything I said and wouldn't cause any trouble. Being with her was comfortable. But little did I know that she was utterly unhappy by my side and even suffered a lot, and the person who caused her suffering was me. I took advantage of her affection for me, ignoring her feelings, treating her coldly, and repeatedly abandoning her for others. I always treated Lindsay as a sister, a responsibility I had borne for many years, promised her parents to take good care of her. I was too arrogant and believed Elaine would never leave me, leading me to unconsciously favor Lindsay over her. But it wasn't until Elaine left that I realized how outrageously wrong I had been. Later, I secretly went to see her. That man treated her well. He would drape a jacket over her shoulders every time he picked her up from work, fearing she might catch a cold. When they walked together, his right hand was always tightly holding her left hand. It was then that I shockingly realized I had never once taken the initiative to hold Elaine's hand. By his side, she smiled warmly and radiantly. I couldn't even remember the last time she had laughed so heartily with me. I really treated her poorly, didn't I? I regret it, but she didn't want me anymore. Today's story is over. Thank you all for listening.